Coming up, ex-Tory MEP, Thatcher fanboy and the leading light of the Vote Leave campaign, Daniel Hannan, is probably mostly remembered for this statement during the 2016 Brexit referendum.
First of all, absolutely nobody is suggesting that we would give up our position in the free market in Europe.
This was just one of thousands of lies told by the Leave campaign to the gullible British electorate. Much less known about the generic Tory boy Daniel Hannan, however, is that just 2 days prior to the referendum in 2016, Hannan wrote an article entitled "What Britain Looks Like After Brexit." In it, he predicted what Brexit would look like by the year 2025. Now, even the biggest fans of this channel wouldn't necessarily claim that Truth to Power videos give the biggest belly laugh on YouTube. But when you hear the actual predictions made back in 2016 by Brexiteer Hannan, this kingpin of the Brexit campaign, all that could be about to change. Stay tuned. Let me start off by just showing you in full the first paragraph of Daniel Hannan's article, written just 2 days before the fateful advisory referendum. It's the 24th of June 2025, and Britain is marking its annual Independence Day celebration. Annual Independence Day celebration? Outside of Farage's immediate entourage, that ragtag band of incels, racists and misogynists, I'm not aware of any Independence Day celebrations taking place in the UK ever, let alone annually. Are you? As the fireworks stream through the summer sky, Hannan resumes, we wonder why it took us so long to leave. Wondered nobody, ever. The years that followed the 2016 referendum didn't just reinvigorate our economy. It didn't, Daniel. The UK has one of the slowest growing economies in the world post-COVID. Our democracy? Hardly, still stuck with the ancient first-past-the-post voting system and the unelected House of Lords, the second largest legislative chamber in the world after the National People's Congress of the People's Republic of China. And our liberty? Au contraire, Daniel. Brexit has removed our liberty to freely travel, work, live and retire in 27 other countries in Europe, and it also facilitated Sunak's government passing the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Act in 2022, restricting our liberty to publicly protest. Hannan finishes the paragraph with the claim that the years since Brexit improved relations with our neighbours. Ah, I see. That's why we had Prime Minister Liz Truss declaring that she couldn't say whether France was an enemy or not. Continuing disputes with our European neighbours over fishing rights, increasing trade barriers and a 17% reduction in trade volumes. So, the Brexitist-in-chief Hannan doesn't get off to the best of starts with his predictions. Let's see if it gets any better. The United Kingdom is now the region's foremost knowledge-based economy, he says. Not quite sure what that vaguely technical-sounding phrase really means, but the UK economy itself is only 3/4 of the size of the German economy, and France is rapidly catching us up and likely to overtake the post-Brexit UK sooner rather than later. One of the major factors that is helping the French economy is EU membership and freedom of movement of labour. Nice try, Daniel, but still your prediction is not even close. We lead the world in biotech, law, education, the audiovisual sector, financial services and software. No, we don't. Null point for that prediction too. New industries from 3D printing to driverless cars have sprung up around the country. Yeah, bloody nose-to-tail driverless cars on our 2025 streets, bleeding 3D printing companies taking over our industrial estates. Oh, hold on a minute. No, they're not. Older industries too have revived as energy prices have fallen back to global levels. Fact check. According to the Telegraph of all papers, UK industrial electricity costs are the highest amongst developed nations. Half as much again as France and Germany, and almost 4 times the costs in the USA. Steel, cement, paper, plastics and ceramics producers have become competitive again. There then follows this pop at the EU that he predicts in 2025, and his characterisation is not one that I'm sure you'll recognise. The truth is, the EU's population is ageing far less than in the UK, and it's indeed the UK who is suffering from fewer and fewer workers as a direct result of Brexit. Next up in this piece of Brexit fan fiction reads, the last thing most EU leaders wanted, once the shock had worn off, was a protracted argument with the United Kingdom, which, on the day it left, became their single biggest market. Remember one of the biggest Brexit lies, that they needed us more than we needed them? This is just that same lie repackaged. If you just look at the proportion of UK exports that went to the EU compared to the proportion of exports from the EU countries to the UK, it's obvious to anyone that can count. It's the opposite of the truth. I'll skip the next paragraphs as they're just waffle with nothing particularly interesting. And let's pick up here. The EU's Clinical Trials Directive, for example, had wiped out a great deal of medical research in Britain. That's fact-free nonsense. Outside it, we can again lead the world. Nothing a Brexitist likes more than phrases like lead the world, world-beating, global success. But there's no evidence to back up these chauvinistic and meaningless claims. Opting out of the EU's data protection rules has turned Hoxton into the software capital of the world. Yeah. You got it, plucky little Hoxton. Very trendy, a cool place, I really like it there. But it's probably one which very few of you in 2025 have probably even heard of. Software capital of the world? Did you experience that belly laugh yet? Britain is no longer hampered by Brussels restrictions on sales, promotions and e-commerce. Well, actually, if we ever were, we still are. The UK GDPR mostly mirrors the EU GDPR. And for good reason. Divergence would lead to further loss of trade and further damage to the UK economy. So just scrolling through the next section on financial services, there's the usual Brexitist talking points, wildly inaccurate claims and mispredictions. So we then get to, after Britain left, the EU's regulations became even more heavy-handed, driving more exiles from Paris, Frankfurt and Milan. No other European city could hope to compete. Their high rates of personal and corporate taxation, restrictive employment practices and lack of support services left London unchallenged. This has proved to be the complete opposite of the truth, with London leeching many thousands of skilled financial services employees to, for example, Dublin for insurance and asset management, Frankfurt for banking and investment management, Paris for all of those, and Amsterdam for stock exchanges and trading. All thanks to you and your Brexit ultras, Daniel Hannan. Again, the next section gives predictions that are wildly off, but still not that interesting, so I'll just scroll through those. And after all that blurb, let's just pick up again here. Outside the EU, we have been able to augment this bonanza by buying cheap Chinese solar panels. In consequence, our fuel bills have tumbled, boosting productivity, increasing household incomes, and stimulating the entire economy. The facts stand in stark contrast to Hannan's predictions. In 2025, post-Brexit fuel bills have soared. Productivity continues to decline. Relative household incomes based on standard of living has seen the largest decrease since the Napoleonic era, and the UK economy has been in the doldrums for all of the years following Brexit. During the first 12 months after the vote, Britain confirmed with the various countries that have trade deals with the EU that the same deals would continue. It also used that time to agree much more liberal terms with those states which had run up against EU protectionism, including India, China and Australia. So let's have a look at the scoreboard. India? No. China? No. Australia? Liberal is an understatement. The UK market being swamped with animal products produced the lower standards of hygiene, permitted chemicals and animal welfare than that required of British farmers. These new treaties came into effect shortly after independence. Britain, like the EFTA countries, now combines global free trade with full participation in EU markets. Dead wrong. Britain is neither global free trade nor full participation in EU markets. Our universities are flourishing, taking the world's brightest students, and where appropriate, charging accordingly. Their revenues in consequence are rising, while they continue to collaborate with research centres in Europe and around the world. Again, this prediction is so wildly off. The fact is that many British universities are struggling with falling revenues due to populist immigration policies restricting the number of foreign students now coming to the UK, with many British universities forecast to go bankrupt. Hannan is wrong on immigration, as you can see here. Couldn't be further from the truth. But now we come to the best bit, where Hannan and the Brexitists prove so ignorant. Unsurprisingly, he says, several other European countries have opted to copy Britain's deal with the EU, Brexit in other words. No, Daniel, you're a fantasist. Some followed us out of the EU, Denmark, Ireland, the Netherlands. Yeah, right. The United Kingdom now leads a 22-state bloc that forms a free trade area with the EU. Oh my God. That's just, for their part, the EU24 have continued to push ahead. The EU24, so funny, have continued to push ahead with economic, military, and political amalgamation. I'm so sorry. They now have a common police force and army, a pan-European income tax, and a harmonised system of social security. These developments have These developments have prompted referendums in 3 other EU states on whether to copy Britain. This is just Brexit fan fiction, but it's the sort of thing that Leave voters were persuaded that was going to happen. It's just laughable. The Leave campaign really was unhinged. The closing paragraph really has nothing but nationalistic bluster and doesn't even relate to Brexit. Daniel Hannan's 2016 predictions for 2025 were an integral part of the wider, dishonest Brexit campaign. And it read like a fantastical wish list or fan fiction, as I've said. In place of economic reinvigoration, we have post-Brexit stagnation. Financial services have not benefited from Brexit. They've instead leached skilled staff to the EU. Promised trade deals have generally not materialised, and the few that have were to the detriment of the UK economy. Energy costs, far from tumbling, have risen as a direct result of Brexit, and unresolved disputes with the EU still to this day rumble on, this 9th year after the advisory referendum result. Far from a knowledge economy utopia, the UK grapples with brain drain, labour shortages and post-Brexit research funding gaps. The Brexit fantasy has cost Britain and its gullible electorate dearly.
Welcome to the Brexit, sir. I'm sorry.
Oh my God.